What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of SSPN Postgame. Uh, this is not the most riveting game to break down, Ethan. That's for sure. Final score: Phoenix Suns beat the San Antonio Spurs 133 to 95. They really had a 40-point lead for
Yeah.
most of the third quarter. Got up by 30. It was 71 to 41 at halftime. I hadn't checked the standings in a little bit, but it's like, lo and behold, what a surprise, Ethan. The Suns are number one and the Spurs are the bottom whenever it comes to the Western Conference standings. And the game really played out exactly like that. Just give me your thoughts on this one, Ethan.
It comes down to a couple simple facts, Jude.
Mm-hmm.
The first one being the Suns are a better team on paper and in reality, just top to bottom. More talent, more chemistry, more cohesion. They've been winning for a few seasons now, so they should win these games.
Right.
Two, the Spurs are riddled with injuries. We were missing two starters and two of our best role players in Sohan, Jakob Pertl, Richardson, and Doug McDermott, and
Dougie.
as well as
Right.
Blake Wesley, who is still out. Um, so we're playing guys like Alize Johnson and Gorgie Jang and Basie, who before the season started, we weren't expecting them to get a lot of meaningful minutes. Romeo Langford also went out, I believe, in the second quarter with a twisted ankle. So we didn't have his defense either. So
Right.
all that combined, we also had a very bad shooting night from three. Again, shocker. So
Uh,
all that being said, that really sums up the game. Like we couldn't
right.
stop the Suns, and they were just having their way with us. They were easily getting to their spots. Sean said it best um, to sum up our defensive strategy for tonight. It said it looks like we're just chasing them around,
Right.
and they are calmly getting to where they want to go and running their offense to perfection. And in no way were we dictating to them what we wanted them to do. And Devin Booker didn't even go off really. Like he was really playing calm tonight. He only had 20 points, shot 16 times. Like he wasn't the problem. It was the entire Suns roster that was just destroying us top to bottom. So
Dude, when Ish Wainwright, a name I haven't heard of in years, is hitting step back threes against us,
yes.
I was just like, and even like Michelle Beadle was on the commentary and she was like, I did not expect that. And it was like, I
Yeah,
remember
literally.
seeing it and I was like, dude, I haven't thought about this guy. So, first of all, he's 6'5, 250. Shout out to him, the real
He's
Keldon.
jacked. He is
but,
jacked.
uh, dude, like, I hadn't thought about him since like probably a couple like 2K when I was in high school. I think like that's the last time I remember hearing about Ish Wainwright. But he's found his way onto the Suns team, so good for him. That's for sure. Looking at the Spurs, just to read off the box score a little bit more to encapsulate things. Zach Collins 1 for 7, 4 points, 6 boards, 5 assists. KBD put up 12 on 5 for 6 shooting. That was really the only efficient thing all night. And just a disgruntled offense overall. Everybody else, like, I'll read just the field goal percentage basically for everybody else, or the field goals, if you will. 11 for 23 from Keldon, 5 of 11 from Trey, 5 of 12 from Devin Vassell, 2 for 6 from 3 from him there, 1 for 6 Isaiah Roby, 2 for 5 Alize Johnson, 2 for 5 Gorgie Zhang, 2 for 2 Charles Basie, and then 3 for 9 Malachi Branham. We were talking about that before we got on air. Just one good thing that you could try to pull from this game is Malachi Branham. I know he didn't shoot well. Obviously, the execution isn't there. But if you've been watching him just since he's been able to kind of get more minutes on the Spurs team, he has this game and the last game as well. It feels like he's finding his spots a little bit better. He's still
Mm-hmm.
not executing there. I'm not really expecting him to be there at that point. It seems like he has a little bit better handle on the ball. These are obviously very little things that we're taking in very poor performances, but the Spurs, they have just this whole losing streak, Ethan, and games like this are just a reminder of where the Spurs are at. We had our little fun there at the beginning of the season. It's just like, no, you're a bottom 5 team, but that's okay. That really is okay,
Mm-hmm.
especially this season. The Spurs right now have the second worst record in the league, only to the Orlando Magic. So I mean, it's just going to be the Rockets, the Spurs, the Pistons, and the Magic, and then maybe you can throw the Hornets in there too. Really gunning for Scoot Henderson or Victor Wembanyama.
Which is not a bad consolation
Right.
prize. Well, it's painful because we're not used to this. We're not used to losing because literally we
Uh,
have not been alive since we've last had a losing season. Um, but it's still interesting, like Garrett said, to watch them slowly get better and hopefully get that number one pick so we can rebuild around, or not rebuild, but continue to build around a guy like Wembanyama. Um, I mean, these games, Jude, have shown me how valuable Jakob Poeltl is.
right. That's another thing we forget about, kind of in the midst of all this.
Hmm.
Yeah. For
And
those of y'all
Sohan.
listening, or go ahead.
I was saying,
Sohan
and
too.
Sohan's,
Right.
impact not on the box score is also being realized.
Yep, for sure. For sure. For just y'all listening on podcast, Garrett said this is a learning process for the Spurs to deal with setbacks to get better in the future when they're healthy, plus a top draft pick. That pretty much sums it up right there. Our man Sean in the comments, he says a 58-18 record for the Spurs. I think for sure they're winning out, no doubt. Also, yeah, dub on me there. I lost in fantasy basketball.
Mm, tough.
Unfortunate. You know, it's all everything's dropped off since Keldon's 3-point shooting. That's what's killing me right now. Unfortunate.
Yeah,
Unfortunate.
he
Uh,
got 27, but 1 for 5 from three, and you could tell he was
the
still
other
very
games though,
frustrated.
because it's over 2 weeks, Ethan.
Yeah.
You see what
And,
I'm
oh,
saying?
I
Anyway.
know what you're saying. Believe me, I know what you're saying.
South Tech says, enduring this much pain, we better get the number one pick. LOL.
Please.
Um, and Rob Martinez says, Vickers Scoot, it's starting to feel real now. And I think that's kind of like, I guess, what we can kind of talk about in this post game. I know the Spurs were already, they had already fallen, you know, before these past couple games and this losing streak has continued to
Hmm.
kind of the bottom. Like it already felt like the Spurs, okay, they're back in the tank mode, they're back in the lottery. But now it's just, you know, it's like with every loss, especially with the one like this, where you're down by 40 for the majority of the second half, even though it's, you know, a contender for sure. It really, once again, it just reminds you where you're at.
Hmm.
Um, so that's really where you're at. I mean, you're just looking at draft prospects. That's where you can get excited, and you really just got to hope that, you know, the Spurs can pull out a win here or there, and that Keldon can get back in rhythm.
Yeah.
That's really all you could. But it's hard to like ask that from these guys too, though. Like in a game like this, I'm not even mad at Devin like
Mm-mm.
not shooting that great because it wasn't like he really played anything different. It was just the Suns had everything going for them tonight. That's the other thing. Like, not only are we outmatched skill wise and experience wise, but we're outmatched. Like when you combine those two things together, like on top of just, you know, straight up experience, right? Like reps, like that also ties into game plans and schemes. And it's just like when you watch these games, you can just tell, like Sean said, we're just chasing them around. We don't know the schemes yet. Our team's like 24 overall. You know
Mm.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we don't know. Like we're just out there trying to like get as many buckets as possible. You know, we had some stuff that we could run early in the year, but now it's just like every team, and obviously this is amplified after playing, you know, the number one team in the West right now and a perennial contender over the past 2 seasons in the Suns. But at the same time, it's just like, you know, we're out there trying to run stuff and
Yeah.
they squash it. They completely squash it, whatever we try to run on offense. And then we're just so young that we don't know defensive rotations yet. And then on top of that, they have like the best offense in the league, arguably. So
Hmm.
it's like, at least right now, and so it's just like, you know, our guys aren't going to do anything against that. You
Yeah.
know, on
Oh, yeah.
at 3 o'clock on a Sunday, it's just not
It,
going to happen.
to make it all worse, and this is true for all teams, but especially young teams, when you get down by 20, then 30, game plan goes out the window. I don't care what that coach is saying in the locker room.
Hmm.
Everyone's going to start jacking up threes, which we saw.
Hmm.
You're not going to run the offense to the same level of crispness because you're going to try and force things and try and take it upon yourself. We saw that with Alize Johnson. He had like a few
Right.
turnovers because he was like pushing the pace almost too hard.
Hmm.
Trying to take it on his shoulders to will this team back to victory. And it's just like Alize,
He was
I'm
just trying to
glad.
go get a bucket, and
Yeah,
nobody
yeah.
cares because the game's over anyway. So it's like, sure, let him go do it.
But it
Like,
leads to silly mistakes, and it's
right.
not a recipe to overcome a deficit. I don't think that was ever in the plans to overcome this deficit, but it definitely didn't help. And defensively too, when you're shooting as well as you are, like Phoenix Suns were, it's like the most subtle pump fake. We were jumping for every single pump fake, going for every ball fake, chasing the ball around. There wasn't a lot of discipline on that side of the court either, because we were so desperate to try and get a big play or stop that it just mentally took us out of the game.
Yeah, and that's something that I think is something the Spurs are gonna have to deal with all year.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
you saw when they got dejected, it's like, I'm not even mad at them.
yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's the worst part is you kinda feel them. So it's like, it just kinda is the nature of the season. Like, I don't know if there's any way really around it, and that kinda leads into Adrian's comment. He says, "Man, this is going to be a challenging season. They are going to be demoralized and going to have to double up on sports psychologists to recover from this season. Lord, hopefully we don't get any more problems from that. My lord." I'm not even
Knock
like
on
trying to
wood.
make a joke, but it's just like what happened the last time, you know?
Yeah, true,
Oh
true.
my gosh. Oh my gosh, man. I wish I had more to say about this game, but I really don't, Ethan.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to say either. I mean, good attempts from Basie and Alizé. At least they were aggressive, even though they made a handful of mistakes here and there.
Keldon did have 27,
Yeah, I'm telling you, he had 27,
right?
but it was like super unimpactful 27.
Yeah,
Like, and he was
right.
clearly frustrated because it was an inefficient 27,
Mhm.
at least from deep. But I did like that he took it inside. He posted up a little bit early.
Uh-huh.
He tried to get some mid-range jumpers to fall, which he did. It's clear that he at least understands that his three-point jumper is not falling, and he has to somehow
Right.
score in different ways. Um, but when Devin only gets 14, Trey Jones only has 10, and literally the entire team was minus in the plus minus. Like, I don't care
Mhm.
how many points KJ scores,
Right.
the team wasn't around him to get this even within like 20.
Mhm.
Like, at no point did we
It
think it was going to be close.
You know what I'm just thinking about? And this is probably, I mean, it may be insignificant long term, but in the short term, this is probably the most important thing of this game was
Mm,
Devin got a little banged up at the end
I
there.
did
I
see that.
and I didn't see what happened. I just saw like when they came back from a commercial, I think, or Monty Williams actually called a timeout to like not make him play basically. And he
Yeah, I
was
saw that.
walking off to the locker room. Did you see what happened, or did you just
Mm-mm.
see him walk into the locker room too?
I just saw
I
him
don't.
walking in the locker room.
Yeah. So I don't think it's too serious, but it may be something that keeps him out a couple games, just like earlier in the year, which just means more of this.
Team tank. I mean, are we gonna have to? We might have to get some like hardship players
Yeah,
if he is hurt, and unless all the other four guys come back
right. Well,
like
yeah,
next
in
year.
that case, honestly, they might just be like, "All right, Josh, you're good now."
Yeah, you're fine now,
You know
Josh.
what
Come
I
out, come on.
Yeah, because
But
they don't I don't know. I don't wanna obviously, they have something going on that, is enough to keep them off the court, but
mhm,
knowing the Spurs and knowing this season, it's like, are those guys really, like, you know what
mhm.
I mean?
I
Like,
do
I
know what
feel
you mean.
like they could go, so that would be, like, why they maybe wouldn't get hardship players, but if it is really, like, they can't play right now, you're right, we may have to sign some other people for
Because
sure.
we'd have 7 dudes out
Oh,
if that were the
you
case.
know who's coming right back?
Who? Oh, Tommy Goose?
Jordan Hall, dude.
Oh,
He just went for 32, 9 for 9,
he's
7 for
goated.
7 in the G League, man.
We just get nothing but G League legends. Like
Uh,
they all come to the Spurs and they're like, eh. But when they're in the G League, they're
uh.
dominant. Luka Samanic, Alizé, Drew Eubanks, like all these dudes were just dominant for the Austin Spurs, and then they show up to the Spurs and they're like, they're okay.
I think even Malachi was, like,
Yeah,
cooking pretty well too.
dominant,
Right. No.
Basie,
For those of
dominant.
y'all who didn't know what I was referencing, I was saying Jordan Hall, the guard that the Spurs have cut and re-signed and cut
Hmm.
again this year. He in his first game back with the Austin Spurs after getting cut, went 7 for 7 from 3 and 9 for 9 from the field.
Yeah.
Um,
Tommy
but
Kuzi even went off a couple games.
really, but all our Exhibit 10 guys, they're crazy out there in Austin. Rob Martinez says, thoughts on Zach? Will Charles ultimately replace him? I think this is actually an interesting question.
Hmm.
Um, just because of the fact that Charles is 3 years younger, from San Antonio, and you can sign him back next year on like literally like a dollar. Like, it's not actually a dollar, but it's like 1.7 million, where, that's literally like, not all of Zach's contracts is guaranteed, but that's potentially 7 times less than what you'd have to pay Zach. Um, but with that being said, like that's basically the merit behind it. With that being said, though, I think if they do bring Basie back, I still think he'll probably be the third guy behind Zach and Jakob. And I think that's kind of shown like tonight where they're starting Zach. So
Yeah, I would agree. I would still put Zach in front of Basie. Basie's solid. He's got great hustle, great strength, good nose for defending the rim.
Hmm.
Tries to dunk everything. But we've seen this show before. I love him. He's in Portland now. Drew Eubanks, similar player as far as hustle. Trying to block everything, trying to dunk everything. Um, they're just different players. But I do think
Hmm.
Zach is at this point still better because Zach's still a shot blocker as well. He's not as strong necessarily as Basie, but he spaces the floor better. He knows the offense better. He
More
doesn't make as many
experienced
silly
overall.
mistakes as Basie will. Yeah, and I do like Basie though. I hope we do keep him because maybe he does have more potential than I'm giving him
Right.
credit for. But for now, I'm going to stick with Zach.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think that that is like a good question.
It
Like, I don't
is.
think that that's an outrageous question. I think that depending on how, this off season goes and how the tables turn over the next 12 months or whatever,
Mm,
maybe he does end up taking, down the road, maybe he ends up taking that backup center spot.
yeah,
Um, He also says, ready for Barlow to level up. I want to say Dom Barlow. I haven't really been watching him in the G League, but I
me
know
neither.
earlier in the year though, when I was looking at box scores and stuff, a little bit slower for him, not having the crazy stats like we were mentioning with the other guys. But coming out of overtime elite, I really think he was going to be a little bit longer of a
Hmm.
project anyway. But I still have hope for his potential moving forward for sure. Our man Tyler Meinhold says Branham and Brick are synonymous. I understand where you're coming from, my man, especially when they were talking about how he kind of needs a little bit more arc on his
He
shot,
definitely does.
Sean, and I agree with that 100%. But don't worry, like he's gonna find his spots. I feel like with time, those are gonna start falling because he's beating people off the dribble right now already. So.
Mm. He's 40. He shot 42% from three in college.
Mhm.
So he doesn't have a broken shot. It's
And
just
run back 2 games ago. I didn't catch the
yeah.
Pelicans game, but go back to the Wednesday game and you can find like multiple plays. And still not the greatest shooting night, but you can find him off the dribble, like in rhythm,
Hmm.
looking like his Ohio State highlights. But
He's got
still
moments
year one. And definitely throughout this season, though, it's been a little bit synonymous, though.
up and down for sure
Yeah.
from 3 point land, especially.
Yeah. But he'll get there. He'll get there.
Yeah, yeah.
Believe. Believe.
I'm not worried about it.
Eric Pacina says Barlow still looks raw in the G League, and that's kind of what it felt like at the beginning of at the beginning of the season when I was mentioning, and I'd see some of those box scores. It was like 9 points, 4 boards, nothing crazy. Um, but he was a two-way project anyway. Not to just throw him away because I think he still has potential, but very low risk, high reward kind of deal there. That's kind of the point of two ways. So.
Mm.
Eric also says, I can't point to how the Spurs regressed defensively, even with the starters. I think teams are just running more like I don't want to say real, but that's like the best way that I can describe it. Like they're at the beginning of the season, everybody's kind of warming up, getting back into things, and now like teams are really in their rhythm and like know their sets and are running like they're clicking on all cylinders. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Hmm.
and so I think that the Spurs just don't have the talent, with all these injuries, the depth, or the, experience basketball IQ wise to really deal with it.
Yeah, and at the beginning of the season, we were dominating teams on defense. We were playing lesser teams. I don't think we really knew that, and we didn't know that at the time. But now that we've
Yeah.
had enough time to let the season play out, we didn't really hit strong opponents until we went on this losing streak, and it's just been tough game after tough game. Clippers, Toronto, Pelicans a couple times, Lakers, now the
Hmm.
Phoenix Suns. Like we haven't really gotten a break other than the Thunder game. Um,
And still choke that.
Still choked that, but at least it was competitive. But aside
Right.
from that game, we've been playing, perennial playoff teams from the West and the East. So I think we've kind of gotten like a little bit exposed. Plus, the struggles with
Absolutely.
rotations as far as like who's playing and who's not on a
Hmm.
nightly basis. Completely different every night. And
Yeah.
Sohan and Jakob Pertl are our really to me the focal points of our defense. They're
Hmm.
the voice, they're the anchor
Right.
for us. And we haven't had Jakob in a good while.
It's your
And then
defensive front court right there.
yeah, really. And Sohan guards basically 1 through 5.
Hmm. Right.
So, and he hasn't been here. And I know it's only been a couple games, but the past couple games have been super tough to watch,
Hmm.
defensively especially. And we really don't have a defensive personnel. Like Devin is a prototypical defender,
Hmm.
6'7", long. was known for defense in college. I
Mm-hmm.
could say sort of the same thing for KBD, although he's not as physically gifted or as
Mm-hmm.
athletic. And then Sohan and Jakob. But aside from that, Trey does his damnedest, but he's still 6'2", 6'1", not the best wingspan. KJ 6'5", not known for defense.
Right.
Up and down the roster, I could say the same thing, aside from the
Mm-hmm.
4 guys that I mentioned, and 2 of them aren't even playing.
Right.
So it's been a tough go around for the
Jay
Spurs this
Rich is
year.
a huge piece on defense too
That's
sometimes,
two. That's
and
true.
he's been out also. Right. Right. I think this kind of the good news for the Spurs here is, Ethan, they get a little bit of a break. They don't play until Thursday, and they get to play the Rockets. So that should be a nice little reset game. Maybe you can
Yeah.
end this losing streak, because then you're going to go on another one until you play the Rockets again. 8 days later. Or not 8 days later, 11 days later. Because then you have Miami, Cleveland, Portland, Miami. So
Yeah.
Miami is struggling a little bit right now, but I think that their get back game will be the Spurs.
Yeah.
Both of them.
Yeah, literally. I'm not mad if we lose all of those
Right.
games because, like I said, I want that number 1 pick or that number 2 pick. But I
Mhm.
do think we need to beat the Rockets at least
Right.
once just for morale.
Yeah.
Otherwise, these guys are really going to get down. Right now, they're frustrated. You can tell in their body language, but they're still playing aggressively. They're not letting it.
Literally, just sorry to interrupt you, but
You're good.
literally just split the Rockets game, because you don't even
That's
have to win 2, just 1 for morale. That's all you need.
literally just to remind these guys, like, you're good. I promise. Like, you do have talent, so they don't get all up in their head.
You're playing now. Look what happens when you play a team that's like semi of equal stature. Like you're okay, right?
Literally.
Right.
Because you can definitely see the frustration in their body language, but at the same time, so far at least, I don't think
Hmm.
it's dampened their effort. If anything, it's increased it almost to a
Right.
fault because they're making
Right.
silly mistakes because of it.
That's a good point.
So,
Yeah, I can't point to like a particular example in my head, but I feel like a lot of the turnovers that the Spurs have had kind of over the latter half of this losing streak have been because they're trying to do too much. Which,
overthinking it.
right, that's the other thing, overthinking. I think that's the complete, like, watching today's game, and who knows, but I felt like watching today's game, I don't know, I just had like a different perspective on it, and this game made me feel like the whole Keldon thing is just straight mental. And I know we'd already said that before, and it's like one game shouldn't like confirm nor deny that for me, but watching today, that's how I felt. I was just
hmm
like, this is all like, and I feel like that's kind of the whole team
Yeah.
to an extent. Also, it's very important when you have like 4 of your rotation pieces who are your 2 veterans and then your 2 best defensive players out. That doesn't help either, like you mentioned. But, like Adrian said, I just put up his comment a second ago. The Spurs need to go play everyone that they can. Like, if Jay Rich and Doug can play in that game, go play them
Play 'em.
and just get a win there, because I think that the guys just need it right now.
They definitely do.
All right. Well, I don't really have any other thoughts, Ethan. Any final thoughts from yourself on today's edition of SSPN Postgame?
Stay strong, Spurs fans. Stay
Right.
strong.
Just know that there is literally light at the end of the tunnel.
Tubble.
Excuse me, tunnel, and it is a very talented player that will help this team. I would like to say also, look, if they drop in the draft lottery, I'm calling it right now, Amon Thompson will be a great pickup, or a Sir. Those 2 guys, I really think that those are like they're top 5 players for sure.
That's what we call a teaser for our eventual
I'm just
upcoming
saying,
draft prospect video.
if the Vic/Scoot thing, like if you somehow get 3 or 4 just because of that's how the odds play out sometime, I think we can still get like a future All-Star for sure.
Knock on wood, fingers crossed.
We'll see though. Right. Maybe they're Greg
Mm.
Oden.
Don't even say it, Jude.
I know. I'm wishing the bad luck. After that, though, when the Spurs play the Rockets on Thursday, they'll play the Heat on Saturday and then start with the Cavaliers next Monday. So a little bit of a break for the Spurs, a little bit of a break on SSPN. We might get together and do a live. We'll see. We'll get together, have our schedules, put a tweet out about it. And that reminds me, if you enjoy watching today's show, don't forget to like and subscribe to the show below, and also to stay updated with the show whenever we do a SSPN live, whenever we do SSPN post games. All of that can be found on our Twitters. You can watch the show on at SSPN on YT as well, at Jude McLaren, at Ethan_Quintero as well. We appreciate y'all. We'll catch y'all in the next one. Go Spurs, go. Stay strong, Tank Spurs fans, and we'll see y'all later.